Since the mid-90s, Andrew Bird has released 16 studio albums and EPs and live records, and he's traversed genres and eras. And back at KCRW, you're back here for, I think, at least your 8th visit, and we've completely lost count. So I'd like to welcome ever-prolific composer, violinist, singer, performer, and even actor Andrew Bird, this time with his jazz trio. Their new album dropped last Friday. It's called Sunday Morning Put On. Andrew, welcome to KCRW.
It's great to be here.
So wonderful to have you here again. And was really looking forward to talking to you. I'd like to get straight into the genesis of this album, technically your first jazz album. And having, you may argue with me on that point, but having listened to your music for years, I now realize I have heard strains of this all along in your music. And I would just like to know who and what inspired Sunday Morning Put On.
Well, I had finished touring on Inside Problems, and I was feeling just a little bereft of ideas and just a little slightly disturbed from being on the road after the pandemic. And I decided to, instead of writing the next batch of songs, I decided to sort of dig into this lifetime love for jazz that I've had, and I've played it over the years, but I've just been an avid listener over the years. And
where did that come from? Well, when did you first avidly listen to jazz?
I mean, probably in my early 20s in Chicago, thanks in large part to public radio, which really helped me figure out what I really loved, which was at WBEZ in Chicago. They had 2 great jazz shows. One was more of a blues show called Blues Before Sunrise, which was from midnight to 4.
Love.
Yeah, such a good show. And so that was old 78s of blues and gospel. And then at 9 a.m. there would be Dick Buckley's The Golden Era of Jazz show, which was more 40s and 50s jazz. So I just immersed myself in that. Really, my 20s in Chicago, it was just like this comfortable bubble that I created of I'd have my like little Windup Victrola that I'd take down to the beach in Chicago and play Johnny Hodges records, and
You're the only guy on the beach with the Windup Victrola.
Yeah, it was like a little suitcase model.
That's great.
Yeah, I just like, coming back to it after 25 years, it's a little different than that. Now it's more purely a musical pursuit. That was like a mix of lifestyle and music and just, this aura of it. Yeah.
Well, I was actually listening again to the album this morning with my husband while we were having coffee. And, I was thinking about Chet Baker. And then we both said Ella Fitzgerald and Carmen McRae struck us as influences on maybe your phrasing, your vocal style, maybe even the arrangements. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was sort of the inspiration we had this morning. I'd love to know I know Coleman Hawkins. Talk about some of these influences.
Yeah, I mean, most of my influences are more instrumental of late, like the great tenor players. And certainly, Chet Baker in the sense that he was a soloist that would put down his horn and start singing. And that sort of speaks to this record in a way where I'm playing like a linear instrument, and then you hear the through line between the solo and the vocal.
Well, I was reading about it and obviously listening. You sort of replaced tenor sax with the violin, which is your instrument, and that must have been fun and tricky. And what was that like? Yeah,
it's just that it really speaks to me more than a lot of violinists is the reed players in jazz, in the sense of like a breath of air creating a phrase. And also, I got this 5-string violin where I have the low C, and it's just like that deep, rich sound is really something, I don't know, it's just, it's influenced my playing more than any violinist has.
Well, and aren't most, I don't play the violin, but aren't they mostly 4 strings?
Yeah. Yeah, this has a low C, so it's kind of like a viola.
Is it the violin you always play throughout the years?
No, I play, I've had a 4-string for years, and I still play that, but this one is well suited to getting that lower, rich, almost cello-like sound and you get, if you ride the line between chaos and like good tone. It's like just like a tenor player will kind of skronk sometimes. Same thing on violin. You right at the edge of that chaotic sound is a really riding that line is part of the sound. You know.
Well, yeah, what's interesting, the word chaos is kind of interesting because this isn't some sort of, I don't know, smarmy jazz vocal, smarmy, that's mean.
No, I know what you're saying.
You've got some spin on the ball, right? And walking that line of chaos did that come naturally out of playing together with the trio or through improvisation? Like what made you kind of like take it and twist it up a little bit?
Well, I really have to say that these players that I've been playing with for years now, Alan Hampton on bass and Ted Poor on drums, they're basically my core band, whatever we're playing. But, we backstage, we listen to and talk about and play a lot of jazz before we go on. And when we went into this, first of all, I just wanted to make a jazz record with these guys. They're so amazing. And they really pushed me to keep it a trio, to keep a lot of space, and to give it, to have it be very, it couldn't be too extroverted,
Right.
Because it got kind of smarmy when I would belt it out,
Right.
And we just knew it when we heard it that it wasn't right. It had to be delicate.
Did you anticipate it being an instrumental album? Because you alluded to that before, but it's not at all.
No, I don't know.
Did that surprise you?
Yeah, but at a certain point, it kind of flipped over from us like doing a jazz record to us just doing the way we make my records. Right. So then suddenly I'm like, okay, the human voice is pretty compelling, and all these kind of things that that influenced me on my own records became important. The choice of songs, like we maybe had a great song, but the lyrics weren't that as strong, or as clever or whatever, so they didn't make the cut. So it was,
Well, I'd like to hear someday what didn't make the cut, but I do want to go back and have you all play some more for us. Thank you so much for being here. This next song I know you're going to go back into is actually an Andrew Bird song from 2001.
Yeah, I probably wrote it way before. It was one of the first songs I wrote.
Can you set it up for us?
Yeah, it makes sense with this material because it's a 32-bar jazz ballad, basically, AABA. And even in all the pop songs call them that, but I have the hardest time writing a chorus, I always have intros and outros and segues, but I just can't bring myself to write a chorus. So anyway, this song makes sense with this material, and it's kind of a theatrical dialogue between two people in a relationship, and it's called Why.
Well, let's listen to it. Andrew Bird Trio, live on Morning Becomes Eclectic. It's 89.9 KCRW.